Hey guys, what is up? It's Hunter Bick with DragTheBar.com, and this is a heads-up match I played against Full Tilt Pro Barney Boatman, and it was a pretty long match. It took 4 or 5 hours. We played about 800 hands. We're playing pot limit 510 heads up, and this is going to be I think it's going to be a 6-part video actually. I recorded almost the whole match. The first 100 hands or so, we're doing them in Holdem Manager, simply because when he started playing, when this match started, I was playing a bunch of other tables, and I didn't think to hit the record button. So after part one, the rest of the series is going to be with live footage, which I think is much better because then we'll have timing tells, and it's probably just more fun to watch. But for the first part, I hope you guys don't mind just doing it in Holdem Manager so that we can show the complete match. I definitely think it's important to show some of these early hands so that you guys see how some of the dynamics were established between us. Um, I've never I've never done a video ahead of such a long heads up match before, and I think it's gonna be really cool. But we're gonna see both me and him adjust to each other a couple different times, and we're gonna see stretches where I think I played really well, and we're gonna see stretches where I think I played all right. So, maintaining your A+ game for 5 hours heads up is definitely challenging. So we are going to see some spots, definitely in some of the later videos, where I kind of caught myself not playing great for a little bit of time for a little bit at a time, and then fortunately I felt I was pretty good about just getting refocused and getting my A game back, etc. So hopefully you guys will enjoy it. And with that, let's get to the action. So first hand, and I'm gonna click through every single hand. By the way, I think every hand matters. Heads up. First hand, we got nothing. Raise, fold. Second hand, there's gonna be a lot of clicking, and hope so. Again, hope no one minds. All right, so I just fold 5-4 off. I like to stay a little bit on the tight side early on, just so that I can get some reads and play some hands that I'm going to be able to show down to gather as much information as I possibly can. So here I defend Queen 10, and we flop a pretty good board. It's drawy, but we got top pair. So it goes check check. Oh, one note on the stats. These were Barney's stats for the entire match. I don't think you can make Holdem Manager show you the stats for like for the part of the match that you're in. Like, for example, we're in hand like number 5. I don't think you can get it to just show you the stats up to hand 5. If you can do that and someone knows how to do it, I would love to know, but from what I understand, that's not possible. My stats I'm purposely not showing because it shows I can't get them just for this match. So you'll see my stats in the next vid. But basically, I was playing like a 65-40 type game, 65-55 type game. My big blind VPIP was about 45 to 50. My small blind VPIP was about 70, 75. And I was 3-betting probably 15 to 20%. So hopefully that helps a little bit. Now also keep in mind that early on in this first video, I didn't really have all this sample on Barney. So we'll just roll with what we have. Okay, so since he checked back the flop, I just lead out for full pot. I think I can get value from a lot of these draws, etc. Maybe like a 6 or a 7, but he just folds. Okay, so for this next hand, excuse me, I have Queen 7 suited, and I open it up, and he calls me. And there's no real reason I'm min raising at this point. Again, I don't mind playing some smaller pots right out of the gate. Just it's going to be easier to show the hand down generally, and it's just I feel like it gives me better control of the match while I'm gathering information on my opponent. So he calls, and we flop like the nuts, and this is a sweet flop. So I pot it, and he folds, unfortunately. Okay, so ace 6. And he raises, I call. And this board is pretty dry, or excuse me, pretty drawy. So it just goes check, check. I was just planning on not doing a whole lot with this board, but he checks back, and when we turn our gut shot, and we're just not going to be looking to fold this. And he bets, and he bets small, not his bet size. It's like 40%. And he's got king jack, so that's fine. I think it's interesting he didn't bet the flop. I personally would have, but that just tells us a little something, I guess. Okay, so ace 5, we're opening it up. Just fold. Okay, so we got king queen, folds. So both players have been kind of on the tight side so far. So he 3-bets me, first 3-bet of the match, and king queen off, I call. Super dry board. So I'm just going to see what happens here. I don't really have a specific game plan until he does something. So I know this board's unlikely to have missed him, but at the same time, it's his very first 3-bet. I have no idea what this guy's 3-betting frequency is. And I think it's a little premature to just stick a raise in right here, very first 3-bet pot. I can make a case for it, but again, you know, I'm going to be repping a pretty narrow range, specifically 9s plus, and considering I have no read on this guy yet, I just didn't do it this time. Although, wouldn't be a horrible play either. Okay, so raise fold. I think I just pitch this one. Okay, so he calls. Now we are playing pot limit, so again, let's just rehash a couple pot limit things. Remember what I talked about in the first pot limit heads up video I made, where when you get to choose when you're on the button in pot limit, you get to choose how big of a pot you want to play by your opening raise size. If you limp, you're going to play a really small pot. If you min raise, you're going to play like a medium sized pot, and if you pot it, you're going to be able to play the biggest pot possible. So those are important. So what you're going to see me do throughout this match is pretty much rate. You're going to see me. Once I figured out that he 3-bets a lot, I pretty much was raising hands that I wanted to guarantee I see a flop on, and then I was min raising those hands because I knew I could control the pot, and I knew that if he 3-bet me, the most I'd have to pay to see a flop would be $40, and I would still have position throughout the hand. Whereas with a pot, if I raise at pot, he can 3-bet me to 90, and then I got to pay 60 to see the flop. So I have to call a much bigger bet. So you're going to see me choose my raise size somewhat on my hand strength, but you're also going to I also wanted to figure out what sort of frequency he was 3-betting each of my raise sizes with. So, you know, if I raised it to 30, was he more likely to 3-bet than if I made it 20? So I was trying to figure out that, and then I also, did some balancing, and, I definitely raised to 30 some hands that I was planning on folding to a 3-bet. And I was also min-raising some of my bigger hands too, just to, make sure I didn't have any glaring bet size tells. But that was kind of the game plan. I was min-raising a lot of hands that, I wanted to make sure I didn't want to raise to 30 and then have to fold to a 3-bet with. So 9-7 suited would qualify for something like that. All right, so he just calls, and for whatever reason, I just thought this. I didn't think he was ever folding a pair on this board, and then there's all kinds of pairs plus gut shots. He's never going to fold an ace. I just checked it back, just planning to give up here. And when he checks the turn, I decided to just bet, and then he check raises me, which I think is really suspicious. I think it's kind of obvious what I'm doing here, and I'm not exactly showing a lot of strength, so it's a good spot for him to attack me. But so I like his play. I don't know how much he has here. I think for him it's more obvious that I don't really have anything. But it's important to know that this guy is capable. For those of you who have never heard of Barney Boatman, like I had not before I started playing him, and I looked him up on the Full Tilt page. Predominantly a tournament player, been a pro for 10 years. 7 stud is apparently his best cash game, and he's had some pretty cool tournament successes. I guess he made like 3 World Series tournaments, final tables in a row one year, which is pretty cool. So I think that's where he derives a lot of his poker income. So that generally leads me to believe that pot limit heads up against a strong, well, solid, decent heads up online player is probably not going to be his best game. That's just what I'm inferring, just because he's more of a live tournament player. So that's his deal. All right, so and he just folds. I fold. So he raises. I stick my first 3-bet in. He folds. Fold. I apologize, guys. I know this is tedious, but I really don't want to skip any hands, just in case there's something cool. Okay. At least you guys can sit back. I gotta click like 10,000 buttons while we go through this. Okay, so a lot of, as you can see, a lot of tight play from both of us for several hands in a row here. No one's really going on a limb here. So I pick up kings, throw in my second 3-bet, and this time he calls. Not like the greatest board ever by any stretch of the imagination for kings, but nonetheless, there's no reason we're going with this. We have kings in a heads-up match in a big pot. We're not folding here. So so I decided to pot it just because this board is so drawy. I want him to raise me. If I want him to just kind of, I would love it if he just raised me here. We can get all the money in. But he's also never seen me play a 3-bet pot, so he has no idea like what my standard c-bet is. As far as he's concerned, this is my standard c-bet, and that's one thing that's kind of cool. Is the first couple 3-bet pots you play against somebody, they don't know what your tendencies are, so they don't know what standard. So you can kind of adjust you really have like free reign on your c-bet size to try to get what you want from them in those first 2 spots. So I pot it just to try to get some value here, charge him the max. If he hit this board, I don't expect him to fold like ever, because there's like 8, 10, 9, 10, Jack 10, Queen Jack, diamonds, whatever else. Jack 7. All these hands are not folding. So I just want to get max value against his range. But he does just pitch it, though, despite the board connecting pretty heavily with his range. Okay, so again, here's another spot where I'm just min-raising. And it ties your opponent's hand. Like, he can't type in 110 and jack it up. He can only make it 60, which is just one thing I just love about pot limit heads up. You just have so much power on the button. Yeah, I mean, you truly get to control. You truly get to choose how big you want this pot to be. So I hit my second pair, and he just checks it. And I decided to just check it back. I think this is kind of standard. The problem with betting is, he's not going to like bet call. He's not going to like check call really anything on this board. I don't see him check calling ace king. He might check call jacks or 10s, but I think that's really it. He's either, I think, check giving up, or I think he is check raising me. Either way, a bet doesn't really do me any good, because if he's just gonna fold, then I might as well have 2-3, or if he's gonna check raise me, then pretty much the same thing. I'm probably gonna have to fold. So I just expect him to be betting any draw, any big hand. Plus, like, who goes for the check raise in like the second 3-bet pot? It just doesn't, it's just uncommon. Let's put it that way. So I decided to check back, hoping to induce some action from the rest of his range on the turn of the river. Unfortunately, the ace rolls off, which obviously hits his range pretty hard, and I'm not exactly thrilled with that card. But nonetheless, I still think the line is the most plus EV way to play this. And he checks again, so I'm just checking it down to see what happens here. And he's got kings, which I thought was really interesting. I think it was, I'm surprised he did I'm surprised he went for the check raise on the flop. And then I get on the turn, obviously, he was just trying to show the hand down, as was I. But I'm not, you know, if I were him, I would have just bet the flop, frankly, especially against a new opponent. But kind of interesting that he went for the check raise there. Just something to take note of. Okay. Raise, fold, not playing the old jack deuce. 10-7. Raise, fold. So again, here's a hand that, I don't really want to play big pot with, but at the same time, I need to, I'm just trying to balance the opening sizes. I need to have these hands in my pot raise range. Did I just get 10-7 3 hands in a row? I did. It's pretty funny. All right, so yeah, again, same thing. Whoops. See if he called. Okay, he folded. All right, so I threw at Jack 10, and again, I'm just trying to get. We've been through a bunch of hands, and I wanted to make sure that I did get some three bets in there. So, and he did fold to the first one, so I thought I had a little bit of fold equity and trying to get the three betting thing going. So I flopped a pretty good board, I thought. And I see bet a little bit less than pot this time, and he just calls me. So it's like, all right, that's interesting. I definitely expect him to be four betting, the big pairs, four betting ace king. I guess he could call. People call with a lot of different aces, especially heads up, correctly or incorrectly. But I didn't think he would float the flop with it. It just doesn't seem. He's been a pretty conservative player so far. He hasn't done a whole lot. Hasn't really made any big moves, and plays kings in a passive fashion, well, a tricky fashion. So I just don't know if he'd float the flop with an ace, especially considering it's only my second three bet. So I decided to barrel and try to get him off of like an 8 or 10s or 7s, just anything really. But he does call me, and I thought the river was a really interesting card. I've got a lot of aces in my range, and it's hard to put him on a hand at this point. I guess he could have like a pair. His 8 is now no good, but his kicker could definitely beat me. Like, his queen, if he has like 8 queen, his queen high beats my jack high at this point. And, obviously he has a hand like 7s. I don't have to worry about it. But at the same time, he's never going to check those back either. If he has pocket 6s here and I check, I don't think he's just going to give up. I think he's just going to put the money in and hope that I fold. So, it's because he has even less showdown value than I do. Because he's gonna know that I have like some Broadway hands for sure in my range, and if he checks back, he's going to lose like almost all the time, and he knows. And anyone, that's not hard to put together. So I expect him to bet things like that, but I can't really call if he bets. So I decided it was important for me to bluff first against his range that even though I beat, I can't call a bet from him. So I need to bluff first. And then on top of that, I thought there was some hope I could get him off of like a hand like pocket 10 or pocket jacks. I think that's going to happen occasionally. And then I guess he has some flush draws in his range too. So I wasn't really sure if he'd call with a flush here on the double pair board when I am repping a pretty big hand, and I do have a lot of aces in my range. And I thought that was a good possibility anyway. I do wish that I had more money in my stack. It didn't really occur to me that I might be triple barreling here because there weren't a lot of good triple barrel cards that could come. This is one of them though. So I only bet half pot on the turn, and at the same time I need to bet half pot on the turn if I was going to have any fold equity there anyway. So I'm left in this pretty tough spot where I have half a pot bet. If I shove, he's going to be getting like 3-1 on a call. But at the same time, like, I have no chance of winning this pot if I check. Like, 0. So I think I just have. So I decided to just shove, and I think there are enough combos I can get him off of. I think, but between everything I just discussed, that I can, put I can bluff here, getting 2-1 on the pot. So um, yeah, so that's what I went ahead and did. He did think about this one for a while, and then he did call me with a flush, which I thought was. I don't think it's a bad call considering the pot odds he's getting. It's definitely not bad. At the same time, I don't know. Early on, a heads up. I mean, I'd probably call. I guess it's kind of tough to analyze. I wouldn't have played the hand this way. First of all, if I were him, I would have raised the flop because the flop misses so much of my range, and there was a big pot to be won just by raising on the flop. And he's got all these outs. He has 12 outs, but no showdown value at the moment. So he needed to raise his flop, and I kind of thought that a lot of flush draws would raise the flop. So I don't know. It was hard. I didn't have a whole lot of hearts in his range simply because of that. That he didn't raise the flop. So this hand gives us a lot of information. It tells us that um, he's playing his draws passively, even in big pots in position, which I thought that was very interesting. I mean, I think raising the flop with 12 outs and a 3-bet pot is in position is 100% standard, especially when you don't have like an ace high showdown value or a bottom pair showdown value or something like that. Like with no showdown value and 12 outs, like that's like an automatic huge raise on the flop in this situation. So I thought that was very interesting and a very nice piece of information. Fortunately, the outcome of this hand was not good, but we do need to think about what this. I figure this hand will kind of set the pace for this match, considering he just caught me barreling off in this spot. So he's definitely going to think that I'm probably a crazy online player and capable of some moves. So, this is definitely gonna adjust my image in terms of how he sees me. So that is something we need to keep in mind. All right, so next hand, Barney now has doubled up, and so he 3-bets me the very next hand. After that, I don't really feel like folding King 10, so I call. Whoops. And he bets like a little more than half pot, and I just call. So I think that's pretty standard. All right, so then he checks, and again, this is a spot where betting I don't think it does a whole lot for me. There's really not a whole lot of scare cards that I'm too worried about, and really not a whole lot of reason to bet in my opinion. And plus, we do know he likes to. Well, he tried to check raise me once in a 3-bet pot, so he might be doing it again here. And that's a very innocent card. And he checks, and I just check it back. And he has 8-7. So now we're kind of putting his 3-bet range together. We saw the kings standard. We're seeing suited connectors now, which is very interesting, and definitely something that's noteworthy, because I think that as he starts to 3-bet us more and more, we can put a lot of suited connectors in his range. So, good piece of information, and we do win a nice pot, a decent pot anyway. Okay, he folds. I fold. He opens King 10 again. So he bets at this one, and this is a good spot to check raise. I think attacking paired boards heads up is it's done a lot, but more importantly, I haven't really check raised him yet, and this is a really good spot just to kind of get the check raising going and up that frequency a little bit. And when he sees my first check raise on a board like this, I don't think he's ever coming along ever, unless he has like a huge hand. So, and he folded pretty quick, so that was good. So at this point, I'm just trying to play well and battle back a little bit. So we min open 7-9. He checks. And I just bet half pot because this board is so dry. And then he check raises me. What did he do the first time he check raised me? He had He had something, if I recall. So I just fold. Note that last time we check raised, we didn't show the hand down, but it was when I checked back the flop and then bet half pot on the turn. He made it 60 there on that ace queen jack 7 board. So now he's doing it again on this board. So just something to keep in mind. All right, it's 10-5 fold. King 10. Again, it's just a hand I wouldn't mind playing a big pot with, but again, I'm trying to make sure my frequencies are good for each bet size. So I just min raised. So we go full pot here, and he checks and calls. Checks again. I just go full pot again. I think there's a lot of draws that we know that he plays his draws passively. We have now seen that twice, both from when he called my 3-bet with the 5-7 hearts, and then when he 3-bet 8-7 suited. He took one stab at it and then gave up. So he plays his draws passively. So that means I can go for full value. And there are plenty of worse kings and queens he can call me with too. So, and then he just folds on the turn. I'm sure I fold here. Probably pitch this one. Okay, so king 7, he calls. Flop our top pair again. So I just lead out for the pot. And he folds. That's the other cool thing about pot limit. You can not only do you get to manage your pot pre-flop, but you can do it on all the later streets. Like if I bet half pot here, it limits the size of the check raise he can make, and it just gives you so much control. It's just if someone wants to play you in no limit and you can get them to play you in pot limit, play pot limit. Okay. Okay, so we raise queen jack and queen jack suited, and he calls. So we get a nice board. He checks, and I go almost full pot here. I think that now that we've seen his, what he's willing to 3-bet with, we know that his range is wide. So now we feel really good about the strength of our top pair decent kicker. And he just folds right away. So that will work. So we played Jack 10 off. And this is a spot where I thought I could just lead out. The board's dry. I have a gut shot. And, I'm picking up the aggression in the last, 5 to 10 hands. And so I didn't really want to check raise him. I think check raising is a good option, by the way. But I'm picking up some momentum. I've been aggressive. And I kind of wanted to get my leading frequency going as well. And I thought that, since I check raised him pretty recently, I thought he might call me a little thin on the check raise. And I don't want to put myself in a spot where I'm going to let him win a big pot right now, considering I'm getting gaining some ground and got some momentum. But I think leading is very important to have in your arsenal. So this looked like a good spot to lead out with just my gut shot. Gut shots and things like that just make good hands to do this with, because you want the fold equity first and foremost, but obviously you can still hit your hand too. And then when people catch you, when you do hit your gut shot and you end up showing the hand down, people just think you're a huge fish, which is awesome. So he raises me, and I call just because I have the odds for it. I'm calling 70, and stacks are deep, and he's telling me he has a hand, so I'm like, all right, that'll work. So I hit my jack, which is kind of makes things interesting. So now I just need to check and hope that he checks back and doesn't, hopefully he was just bluffing me, or he was making a thin raise of like a 9 or something. So he does check back, which is good. And then I do hit my queen. So now I think what did I do? Okay, I bet pot, which I think that's the play. I think it just needs to look bluffy, and just make it look like I'm trying to push him off of this. I think that's the most important thing here. It's hard. Plus, it's hard to say what he even has. I think he's checking this hand back like always on the river. I don't know if he was bluffing. If he's bluffing, he's just gonna fold it. We're just gonna win the pot anyway. So we might as well only worry about the hands he might have raised for value, because I don't think he's gonna try to bluff this board really at all. Um, if I check it to him, so we just need to worry about the hands he's gonna raise for value, and those would be king type hands. You know, maybe he was raising like, nine queen or nine X or something like that. It's tough to put him on a strong hand that raises the flop and checks back the turn. So I don't think he has a whole lot, but considering I called, I don't think he's going to think that I'm ever going to fold if he bluffs. So I just think we just have to bet and hope he has something he can call us with. And he just folds. So I think he was just bluffing on his flop raise. But that's good to know. People hate being led into. So I think that he was just trying to play back at me. All right, so 6-4. I just pot it, and I think that's pretty standard on such a tight board like that. And by tight, I mean that very few hands in his range hit it. Okay, so we got queen 5. I just check this one back. I haven't really checked a hand back yet, and I don't want him thinking that he can count on me c-betting all the time. Because then when they can count on that, then they often will start check raising a lot, and I just like to keep him guessing. So I check this one back. It's good of board as any to check back. So I turn some showdown value, which is cool. I go for half pot, just hoping he'll call me with like hearts, 7, ace high, king high, a 3, anything like that. So he checks, and I just check this back. I mean, that 2 hits a lot of the cards I just talked about. And fortunately, I take it. He just had ace high, so that's cool. All right, so he just folds. So we got another gut shot, and this one I just check and call. And the reason I just checked and called this is because I thought I could start bluffing if hearts showed up also, and that was kind of my game plan here. I let out once, and I checked. I could have check raised, I think, but I was afraid the board was a little too dry to check raise. I thought there were just a few too many hands that might come along with their gut shot, or especially because we're deep. I can only check raise so much, and no matter what I did, he was going to have odds to peel, really. And if he had a hearts, he's never folding there. So I just decided to check call. And if he checks back the turn, I can just bomb the river, really, no matter what comes. Doesn't even have to be a heart. And then it just kind of works as an out of position float, which can be a great hand too. So we're seeing a few different ways to play a gut shot out of position heads up. So he bets here, and now I just fold. I was planning part of the reason for the flop call was to take advantage of the times he checks back the turn. So when he doesn't, we just gotta pitch it. Ten five. Jack 4. Okay, so we raise king jack, but no luck. Okay, so now we got ace king, and we're 3-betting, and he just folds. So now, as you can see from his stats, his folded 3-bet will ultimately be 34%, but so far it seems like he's still folding to a decent number of them. What did I fold there? Oh, 3-5. Looked like 5-5 for a second. I was like, you gotta be kidding. Okay, so obviously we're deep, and there's no way I'm folding this hand. Flop a second pair, backdoor flush draw. Pretty decent flop, actually. So he bets half, and we call. Like we've seen, his 3-betting range is pretty wide, and definitely includes, a lot of hands that we beat right here. So we got pretty decent equity against his range. So now he bets out again, and this is actually a tough spot. We haven't really seen him double barrel yet, Well, we have, but we haven't seen a hand that he double barreled go to showdown. So we're not real sure what exactly this is. And I think I just end up I do end up calling. I think this is an interesting spot just because in the past few three bet pots we've played in position against him, when he missed his hand, he would bet once and then give up. So I think at this point in the match, I was thinking that he had seen me call light twice, and therefore was trying to move me off of like some pocket pair or an 8 because he knew I was capable of showing up with those, and he didn't want to just hand me another pot with my second pair. So I thought that was a pretty distinct possibility. But at the same time, I mean, obviously he's got aces in his range too. So my plan here was to peel one more and then fold if he bet big on the river, which isn't a line I love, but I thought it was the best option here. Just because, he'd seen me be sticky in these three bet pots. And just thought there was too good of a probability he was just trying to move me off of something. So I do call. And then he checks. At this point, there's no point in me betting whatsoever. So I just check too. And he's got king 10. So that worked out well. And it was also the first time we've seen him double barrel. Like, you remember when he had the 8-7 suited, he did not double barrel. He checked and then gave up, really. And then allowed me to show down second pair. So I fortunately, what my prediction of what he was doing turned out to be right, which was fortunate. I mean, he definitely has some aces in his range here too, but we ran good in this hand in the sense that he actually was just still semi bluffing, double barreling me. So that worked out well, and now now I've gotten most of my money back at this point, which is cool. But at this point, I really feel like I'm in control in control of this match. I feel like I'm putting his ranges together, and I'm doing a pretty good job figuring out his thought process. So I'm definitely happy with how things are going. Okay, so I call 6-8, and I just check and call here. I think in no limit, I think you can make a big check raise here, but I wasn't sure I could make a big enough check raise in pot limit, although it wouldn't be bad by any means. But I also think I have a lot of equity, and this isn't like the type of. I also think a more important variable for whether or not you want to check raise is the likelihood of you being able to show this hand down. Against a lot of opponents, you're just not going to be able to show this hand down. Like, they're going to triple barrel you. So, but we haven't really seen Barney do that a whole lot, so I thought that I could just check and call and get away with it. So there's really no need to turn it into a bluff by check raising. And sure enough, he does check back. And at this point, I just bet 50. And it's just a bet trying to get a call from like a 5 or ace high. And, it's kind of this bet's going to give me some info too on his thought process. If he raises me, I don't know if I'm going to call or not, but it will tell me whether or not he's willing to attack a small bet on the river, or if he's just going to pay it off with like an ace. Obviously, I want him to just pay it off with an ace. That's why I'm betting small, to make it easy for him to do that. Because otherwise, it's going to look like. I mean, here, if I bet big, like, I'm never getting a call from a worse hand because of the flush coming in and the jacks and the straight coming in. So, but if I bet real small, I might be able to get a call from like ace high. That's essentially what I'm looking for here. And he just folds, which is fine too. Alright, so, and the other benefit is, like, if he has, like, well, I don't think he's going to fold pocket 8s. Never mind. Okay, so king 6. Pop it up. He 3 bets. And I just fold king 6, even for this small 3 bet. The hand, king 6 off, just plays so bad. It's going to play just terribly in a big pot with these stacks. So I just pitch it and just avoid the situation altogether. And it is important that I've fought for almost every 3 bet pot that I've called him with. And I've been winning most of them. And I kind of thought that, it's definitely a reverse implied odds situation. I'm either going to flop like bottom pair or top pair no kicker. And I do think he's going to pound me hard if he actually makes a hand. So I just thought that the hand had a lot of downside and very little upside, given what's happened in the last few 3-bet pots and where we are with these stack sizes. So King Jack, raise 3-bet, 4-bet, and this is the first 4-bet we have seen here. I've definitely been picking up my 3-betting, but really hasn't been like out of control or anything like that. So when he 4-bets me here, King Jack off just does not play well against his 4-betting range, and that's just kind of an auto fold. I mean, the hand is just in so much trouble equity-wise against his 4-bet range, especially since it's his first 4-bet. I haven't really, as I said, I haven't been out of control with my 3-betting, so there's really no reason to put him on a bluff there. So I raise Jack 6. He calls. And he leads small. And I'm going to do the same thing he did to me when I first led, and that's raise. And he calls. It's like, what is he... What does he min-bet call here other than like an ace? So obviously I'm not going to contest this anymore. I'm just going to check back and hope I hit my 5. I don't. He checks, I bet 40. I don't like this bet at all. You know, what I was thinking here was that, you know, he folded the last time I bet real small. So I was kind of thinking maybe I could get him off of like 4-6 or something. I think this is a waste of $40 personally. I think I just need to give up on this pot. You know, he's not going to bet call like pocket 7s. I mean, maybe he could, but even if he did, he's not going to fold them now after I check back the turn. So I think this was just a little. This was pretty optimistic, and yeah, it's not a very good bet. But he does fold, which I played this match 2 days ago, and I didn't remember the outcome of this hand exactly. I am stunned to see him fold there. I really have no idea what he was doing. I don't. I really don't like the. I still don't really like my bet just for the reasons I just said. Just because I can't put him on a range that does this, and I still can't, even though he folded. So whatever he was doing, I'm not really sure what that was, but glad it worked out that way, I guess. I'm really trying to put him on something there. I don't know, but I think what we do know, what we can glean from this, is that his min donk bet leading range is obviously pretty weak. So that's something to keep in mind. You know, I think I can tell you right now what I was thinking at the time. At the time, I was thinking I have no showdown value, so I just got to bet something and hope he folds. And I got away with this 1/3 bet 2 hands ago or 3 hands ago. So I'm just going to try to do it again here. And because I got a fold before, maybe I can do it here. And with no showdown value, I think I just need to bet something. And that's what I was thinking. I still think it's optimistic, though. Okay. Fold. Fold. Okay, so we threw red ace jack. Get another fold. So he's still folding to a decent portion of my 3-bets, so I'm going to definitely try to keep it going. I'm going to 3-bet him more and more until he starts calling more and more. So he check raises here. There's just no reason to fight back. He hasn't really checked. He still hasn't check raised me a whole lot. But, you know, it was a paired board, and people like to check raise paired boards, so just something to keep in mind. Make sure we fold. Yep. So we call Queen 7, which is on the loose side, but, you know, I feel like we've been definitely taking control of this match, so just thought I could outplay him enough to make this profitable. And I was right this time. You know, he checks back, and ace is a good card. I mean, he might be checking back ace high, but at the same time, everything else he checks back, I'll win with a bet here. So that's the goal. That's the reason for that. Fold deuce 7. Probably just fold right here. Oh no, I call ace 5. Okay. So we check call, real standard. And he checks again. And the queen I don't like, you know, the queen 8 definitely hit his range. So I'm not gonna put any more money into this. I'm just gonna try to hope that he checks it back, and he's got 6-5. I think you need to bet on that river. By the way, I just think that between the 8 and the queen, I think those are good. Maybe not the 8, but definitely the queen. Those are good cards for him to bet, and they're gonna shake me off of a lot of my range that just check calls that flop. Only really my kings are gonna check call. Really, only my kings are gonna call a river bet. I think he can shake me off of everything else, but it's okay. Okay. 9-4. I'm sure I just folded. Jack 4. So I bet here the ace high flop. Now he's check raising me again. So now it's like we're starting to see a pattern here. He's check raising the ace high boards. He's check raised the pair boards. Now he's check raising a 3 flush board. So we're definitely keeping in mind some of these board textures that he's check raising. It's really important to notice what textures your opponents are check raising. So raise, call. So I check call this turn. It's like if he doesn't bet this, if he's not betting a queen on the flop, I would have thought he would have bet a queen on the flop. It's hard to imagine that he has a queen here. I guess he could have a 9, but I'm certainly skeptical enough. He could also just have decided to start betting a draw. So I peel with my ace high, hit my ace, and I just lead into him. Because if he doesn't have a flush, or a queen, I think he's not going to bet. The problem is when the flush gets there, he's never going to bluff again because of the way I played the hand. So I don't really expect him to bluff again, but I also don't expect him to check back a hand that I beat, like 9s. So, like a pair of 9s. So I need to lead here to try to get a call, but he folded. Queen 3, we just pitch that one. This is going to be a fold. Okay, so he 3-bets me at the king 5. Super dry board, and he leads out at it. And I float him because we both know damn well that this board does not hit anybody's range. And I have position, and I just kind of see this as my pot to lose when I see this texture, and we both missed, essentially. So, turns to 6. Now I'm not loving that card. I do have a gut shot, but at the same time, we know he likes to 3-bet his suited connectors, and if he didn't have a 7, he could have a 6 at this point. But at the same time, it's like a lot of the hands that, at the same time, it's like his range is wide, so not the end of the world. And he just checks, which I expected to happen a lot. That's why I'm betting. I floated. It's the whole purpose of floating is so you can bet the turn when they check. And so that's what I do, and he just folds. His range is just much wider than suited connectors, but they are in there. But even a lot of suited connectors whiff this board. 8-9 is not going anywhere, but anyway, I guess the rest of them hit it. But it's just overall it's a small part of his range. Okay, whoops. Fold. Fold that one. Okay, so raise 3-bet, call. And I hit my jack, which is great. Excellent result. And he just folds. So you guys should also notice at this point that when I 3-bet him, if he doesn't fold pre-flop, he folds on the flop a lot to my c-bet. And that is very important because that means we can start 3-betting a much wider range. And it's like there's a lot of ways to win the pot. If he doesn't fold pre-flop, we're going to get him off it on the flop with a high percentage of the time. It's almost like he's playing fit or fold on the flop. And he's just folded to so many c-bets in this spot. So a really important thing to notice. And we take that one down. Alright, so we open up 2s. He calls. I just bet here. I'd rather just be bluffing this hand. I'm not going to try to show it down. I mean, I could against Barry. Barney's been passive enough that I probably could, but I just think the hand plays a little bit better as a bet. It's just I would just rather err on the aggressive side in general, and it's not like this hand has a ton of equity ever. So okay, so we call 10-9 suited, and we check. He bets, and we just call another out of position float. I think that on a board this coordinated, I think it's a pretty good. We have a backdoor flush draw, and we have over cards. A check raise I think would also be a good option on this flop, but I think I might even prefer that. But the float is okay too. It allows me to rep kind of a decent amount. If he checks back again, but it didn't work. I think I'd prefer a check raise there, though. I think that we just need to try to win the pot right there instead of trying to get a little too fancy, I think, with an out of position float with that particular hand. Okay, so he calls. Just bet 2/3 here, and he calls. I think leads into me, and I don't. This he leads into me, and this made no sense whatsoever. I was like, does he have a 3? I mean, a 3 is the only thing I can put him on that plays it like this. Maybe an 8, but like, I think an 8 would probably. I haven't really seen him lead into me on the turn yet. He min led on the flop that one time, but he hasn't really done this yet. So I'm very suspicious. I don't really not gonna give this a whole lot of credit. I think it's kind of a convenient bluff card for him, and I'm just not ready to give him credit for anything yet. So then he bombs the river at me, and so I'm like, all right, well now he has an 8 or a 3, and I just have to fold. There's really nothing I can do here. We definitely haven't seen him play bet big on the river yet, so I think I just had to pitch it. It's like when he play a flush, he plays his draws pretty passively, um, out of position. So I think that flush draw might have just checked and called again. Same with a straight draw. So I don't know. Um, I think we got to give him some credit once he bets the river like that. And Queen Jack. I mean, the problem is he could be bluffing with. If he's bluffing, he could have like an ace or a king, and we still lose. So it's like we either have to shove or fold, and I think folding's by far the best option there. Okay, so we defend 6-5. So I lead into him. I've had a little success with that in the past against him. And I turn an open ender, and it goes check check. I thought that the reason I just checked the turn was because I didn't think anything that he called with on the flop he was suddenly going to decide to fold on the river. So, excuse me, he was suddenly going to decide to fold on the turn. But then he checks back the turn, and I'm like, maybe he does have a bunch of jacks or eights or something like that. I kind of thought he would bet an ace. So I decided to just take a stab at this one and just go full pot at him. Um, and it fortunately worked out. He can put me on 9-10. He can put me on like a 2-pair type thing. So I really just didn't. Once he checked back the turn, I think it just took so many big hands out of his range that I just really thought I could win this pot with a bet. And I think maybe he even folds like maybe a jack, maybe sometimes. Definitely he's gonna fold like an 8, I think, for sure. So um, that one worked out. Okay, so 8 queen. Flop top pair. Bet call. And he checks again. Check bet call on the flop. Excuse me. He checks here. I'm going for full value here against, gets his range, his draws, weaker queens, under pairs, 4, that sort of thing. He does it again. So now the flush shows up and he checks. And it wasn't really. This is kind of an interesting decision. I think there's a lot to be said for checking I think there are some better queens he could have. He definitely could have a flush. Um, he's gonna fold a straight draw anyway. There's no value from that. So it's like, what do we really get value from? You know, a worse queen, and he's not gonna call a four. If he somehow has a jack, that's it. But the bottom line, there just aren't a whole lot of hands he could have. Is he gonna call like pocket eights? I mean, probably not. So I just didn't think there were a whole lot of hand combos that I can get value from here. So I decided to just check it back and show the hand down, and he had ace high. So we're starting to see, and I don't think he was going to call the river with that. So I really didn't think there was any hands I could get value from. There weren't many at all. So I didn't really think betting did a whole lot for me. So we do see here he is willing to start. He's starting to call me down light. That's a pretty light turn call, I think, with just that gut shot. Not to mention the fact that, like, with all those draws I could be semi-bluffing, he's not going to know what a good river card is or isn't. So it's like, I don't really... I think it's a bad board to be making that turn call with for ace high, even with that gut shot and the overcard. You know, it's because you're going to have to win the pot with your ace high a lot, and I just think he's going to get barreled off on the river a ton. If my hand's any better than this, I'm going to be betting anyway. So, but he's, he doesn't have a whole... He sees... This tells me he sees me as aggressive, and he's willing to call me down light. So he 3-bets queen 6 again for all the reasons and we're only 100 deep now. So for all the reasons I folded king 6 off, I'm going to fold queen 6 suited. Pretty much the same hand. They become a lot different with 200 BB stacks, but with 100 they're pretty similar. Sure, just fold. 3-bets me again. I got the 9-8. So again, I'm floating him on the ace. We haven't caught him 3-betting an ace yet. Maybe he's running bad. Maybe I'm folding when he has an ace, or whatever's going on. Maybe he hasn't been dealt a big ace yet. But I've just had good luck taking him off of these ace high 3-bet pots. So I decided to go for it again here, and he checks, which is what he's pretty much done almost every time. So now I got a bet, and I did float him. And I got a gut shot too to fall back on, so that's positive. And he folds once again. So I'm starting to see a pattern that 3-bet pots have gone my way quite a bit. Whether I'm in position, whether I'm the one doing the 3-betting and I'm c-betting and taking it down on the flop, or whether it's when he is 3-betting, I'm floating and taking it down on the turn. But I've won a very disproportionate number of 3-bet pots, and that is something I'm definitely noticing and definitely looking to take advantage of. We just have not seen him play back at that yet. I'm floating him and winning pots winning big 3-bet pots, very high percent of success percentage. All right, so call it the ace 6, and I'm calling these weak aces. I usually, depending on how good the guy is, I don't. I will often fold ace 6, but I just feel like Barney's been passive enough in position that I can get away with this, and I can make this hand profitable. So that's why I'm playing all these weak aces. If someone comes to me and wants to learn heads up, first thing I tell them is start throwing away hands like this, because it gets you in a lot of trouble, particularly against aggressive opponents. But considering how many hands I've played heads up and my feel for this match and this particular opponent, for me to play here is definitely plus EV. So just wanted to clear that up. All right, so check bet call. I got a gut shot here. If I had like queen 6, I would like a check raise here. But with the ace high, I have showdown value, so I think a check call is fine. Check, check. And we hit the ace, and I give him a chance to bluff with the hearts. I kind of thought he was just gonna. If I bet, he was only gonna get action from worse hands. I was only gonna get action from better hands anyway, so might as well give him a chance. Might as well give myself a chance to get value from more of his range than I would with a bet. So, fortunately, he doesn't go for it, and I do win with my ace. All right. So I am playing more and more hands on the button, by the way, at this point in the match than I was in the first 30 or 40 hands. So I got my gut shot. We bet. He folds. Standard. So here's another spot to lead. If he raises me, that's perfectly fine. I can 3-bet him or I can call. And I didn't really want him to I didn't really want him to. He's been checking back a decent amount. I don't want him to check the flop back. I want to build this pot up. And if I win it on the flop, that's okay too. So it's a good spot to lead. So we raise here, and so I got another gut shot situation. Also got my overcards, and he just folds. So I'm definitely picking up the aggression, and he's generally been folding to it. So I'm definitely, I feel like I've got a really good control of this match. I'm up about $500 at this point. Well, maybe about 300 or 400. And he's generally doing what I want him to be doing, which is always a good feeling when you're playing heads up. He's pretty much just folding, and it feels like he's just trying to hit some hands against me, and that's really where you want to be in the match. He does adjust and he does start fighting back in a little while. And I don't know if it's in maybe part 2, definitely by part 3 he starts fighting back, and then that definitely makes him a little more challenging to play against than he is right now. Sadly, this current pattern of play did not go on forever. So again, notice the ace-high flop he's check raising. That's like, how many times have we seen him check raise an ace-high flop, guys? That's like at least the 4th one. So definitely we're keeping track of that. If anyone is really, one thing you could be doing while you're watching these is, especially if you're going to watch all of them, if you have like a notepad, write down how many times he check raises the ace high boards and the paired boards, because it is significant, and it is definitely something that is interesting to definitely something to keep track of. All right, so we got our top pair, medium kicker. Well, really no kicker. And he checks again. I go for full value again, just because of what we know about him. We know he's willing to call the turn light after that ace. After he called that turn with the ace, I think we know very well he is capable of calling the turn light. So we just want full value against his calling range, whether that's an ace, a 9, a 5, a flush draw, etc. And he just folds. So we got deuces. He folds. He check raises here, which to me it looked like he had a hand, just because this wasn't like a real obvious spot. His check raise percentage is definitely picking up. It seems to me starting to notice that I've been folding to most of them. I haven't really played back at a check raise yet. I really haven't had a hand to, haven't even had a draw to. So, I think he's seeing some success there. That's why he's starting to do it more and more. So a pretty speculative call on my part, which is alright once in a while. Flop medium pair, and I can check and call against Barney. I keep saying Barry. I have no idea why. Sorry about that. It's because when the first time I saw him in the box or on the full tilt thing, I didn't realize he was a red pro, because I don't play with avatars, and the end looked like an R to me on full tilt, so I thought it was Barry. So I apologize for keep screwing this guy's name up. Barney, I think I can definitely check and call this hand against him. So on the river, this river bet is like, I'm bluffing, obviously. I'm trying to get him off of like a 9. That's the goal here. I don't expect him to fold a queen. So I didn't like the turn on the river, so I decided to just lead out. He'd been folding a ton when he took this line. In the past, when he's taken the bet flop check turn line, he's almost always folded to a river bet. So that's what I was trying to do here. I just decided to bluff this middle pair hand, 4th pair. But note that when I get called, I'm not real happy about it. I was like, well, that didn't work. But then the pot comes my way, and he's got king 5 for king high. And I was like, wow. I thought I was bluffing. So That's an important piece of information, fellas, and that is good to know. This guy, so he's gradually losing more and more respect for my aggression, and that's important to note. So note that his first adjustment against my aggression has been to calm me down. So that's kind of the theme of video 1 here. We're almost done, by the way. That's how he's dealing with my aggression. In the next couple of videos, you're going to see him readjust, and become more aggressive, and start raising me and fighting back a little bit more. And then you get to see how I deal with that. So in in the dreamland of perfect heads up world, he would just go like this forever, and I could just value bet like crazy. But sadly, this guy is a professional poker player, and that's just an unrealistic expectation. But it was good while it lasted. So, and it lasts, pretty long time actually. I can't complain too much. So, last hand of this one, he raises. I've got ace 9 suited. Flop my ace. I decided to lead out because I've been leading out a lot of gut shots and, other very, very marginal hands. So I decided to lead out a good hand, balance my range. And he calls me. Not crazy about the 8, just because, obviously, it's a big part of his range when he calls me. But we go check, check again, like he always does when I check call or I bet. He checks back the turn a ton. Like, his turn aggression is like way too low. So now I'm like, he could have a tiny ace. He could have a 6. He could have, you know, missed flush. I still think I need to check here, though. God, it's really hard to come up with something that he calls me with that I beat. But he called me with king high the last time, so, who knows? He could have a weaker ace. He definitely could have, a 6. So, at the same time, there's a lot of, well, I think betting's the play. It's still really thin, though. Let's not kid ourselves. And we do win. And he had queens. So, that worked out. All right, guys. Hope you enjoyed part 1. And we will, yeah. Hope you enjoyed part 1. And definitely let me know what you thought about it and ask me any questions in the forum. And I will record part 2 tonight. And we'll keep it going. All right. Thanks a lot. Thanks for watching. And talk to you soon.